Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I see some familiar names and familiar faces again with us today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Cara Doherty, and I am an academic consultant here at the Global Language Training. Again, I'm going to be starting off our webinar today, and James will take over a little bit later. We're about to start in a minute or so. So if anybody needs to stand up and do a quick stretch before we start, now would be time. Hello, Erica. Hello, Johan. Nice to see you guys again.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, James.
I'll be joining you in a few minutes, right?
Yep, perfect. No problem.
All right, take care.
And so today we're going to talk about creating our own content for online learning. So some of us, maybe we have already done our TEFL, maybe some of us are just about to complete our TEFL certificate and we are looking for work. So we have quite a few different options, right? We can move abroad and get a job in a different country, in a school, or we can teach online. And in this current COVID climate that we're all living in at the moment, there's been a huge push and growth towards online learning as well. And when it comes to online learning, we have a couple of different options. So as we have mentioned before throughout other webinars, we have a couple of different groups that are already developed online for teaching that you can sign up to. We've mentioned a couple of them before, things like Magic Ears, VIP, Data, ABC, iTutor Group. But you can also, as an individual, develop your own programs, have your own students, develop your own lessons and work for yourself. So that's what we are going to look at today, talk about it in a little bit more detail, and then go through some resources so that people can feel in control if they want to go down this avenue themselves. So let's start. I will share my screen with you guys and head straight over to our PowerPoint. So we're going to talk about creating our own program, and we're going to talk about a couple of different things. So the first one is obviously, why would we want to work for ourselves? So I think this is the same with any industry. If somebody says they're your own boss, you're working for yourself, I think the first thing everybody thinks of is freedom. We have that freedom to do what we want to do, work when we want to work. And so it's going to be the same when we are creating our own programs or working for ourselves when teaching online. When you're working for yourself, we are going to have the freedom to choose our own hours. Not only are we going to be able to choose our own hours in terms of how many hours we work per week, on what days of the week we work, how long our lessons or how short our lessons are going to be, as well as how many lessons we teach in a day. Sometimes if you work for a group that's already established, you may have set fixed hours. So you may have to commit to at least 10 hours a week, at least 20 hours a week. You may have to commit to teaching on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on when the demand for your lessons are. And then you may also have to think about time zones as well. This is another thing when we're thinking about developing our own content and thinking about our timing for ourselves. We just also have to think about what is the time difference in the area that I want to teach, where my students are. So there are a couple of different elements when we're thinking about time that we have to be aware of. So yes, as an independent teacher, I can decide not to teach on a Saturday and on a Sunday, but will I lose out on a huge number of students by not teaching these days? Again, that's totally up to you. Maybe you only need a certain number of students or only want a certain number of students, and so only want to teach Monday to Friday or something like this. It's up to you. Again, you have this freedom. Of course, when we're working for ourselves, we also have control over our costs. How much are we going to charge for our time for our lessons? So when we work with a company, we may be on a set rate. Maybe our rate will change depending on feedback from clients, depending on the number of hours you teach per week. So you might not have a lot of control over how much you're earning. If you're working for yourself, it's up to you to decide how much you charge per lesson or per set of lessons or per duration of your course. How you decide to set your costing and your pricing, that's totally up to you. The one thing that I will say when we're thinking about costs is we also have to think about currency. So we're thinking about what currency are we in? Are you living in at the moment? What currency do you use? What currency would you like to be paid in? What currency are your students using? Okay, how are they going to pay? Are they going to have the amount fixed in their currency and that will be affected by exchange rates possibly? Are they going to pay the cost fixed on your currency? How are you gonna work around this? So this is something else to think about when we're thinking about costing and currency and money. And the last thing then also is if we're working for ourselves, is we want to take care of our own tax. Now, with some online companies, you have to do this anyway. So there isn't too much difference between working for yourself and working for an online company in this aspect. Most of them will pay you the set amount and then you work out your own tax. So, but this is something again that we just need to be aware of. And also, when we're starting out, there will be a lot of work, as we'll see and as we'll discuss as we go through the presentation. There may be a lot of work and a lot of output of effort and hours and time when you are first developing yourself as an online independent teacher. And so you may have to put a lot of work in at the very beginning, but as you develop and get stronger, just like anything else, that time will reduce and reduce and reduce. And this is where you will be able to earn good value for money. Of course, then, if we're working for ourselves, we can create our own content. What our presentation is on today, what our webinar is on today. It's up to us to choose our content, to choose where we find our content, how we put this stuff together. So as a teacher, I'm sure quite a few of us, or even just in our general lives, classes, think of any classes or any skills you've developed or learned yourself, you're always going to come across poor content or really badly developed lessons or just something that doesn't fit, that doesn't work. Maybe something as a teacher, a unit that you just dread teaching. So working for ourselves, we really get to be creative with developing our own content. Now, of course, there are going to be things that we can't skip over if we have a boring or difficult grammar section or something like this. It doesn't mean, oh, let's just skip over that content because I don't like teaching it. Of course, we can't do that, but it allows us to think about it in a much more creative way, and let's work around and be flexible with how we're going to approach that certain subject or certain topic. And finally, then, we have control over who we teach. As an independent teacher, you can decide to stick and teach directly to young learners. You can decide that you want to teach business English to people who are in their developing their careers. You may want to teach teenagers. You may want to teach advanced students. You may want to teach one-on-one. So all of these different things, it's up to you to decide. If we're teaching with a group that's already established, you may not have a choice of how many students are in your lesson. You may have a 1-to-1, you may have a 1-to-2, you may have 1-to-6. So again, these require different skills, and you may yourself prefer to only have 1-to-2 lessons, or only have 1-to-1 lessons, or to teach on a much larger scale and have 1-to-3, 1-to-4, or do something like this in a webinar where you're giving almost a lecture style lesson as well. That's also a possibility. So these are, again, a lot of the positives and a lot of the benefits which come from working for yourself. But we also have to think of, with all of these things and with all of these benefits, it also means that we as an individual are left looking and searching for all of these things by ourselves. So it's up to us to search for our students, to search for our content. It's up to us to develop our costing, our pricing, our own work schedules. So these are things that we have to be aware of. And these are things that we're going to look at today a little bit more as we go through our webinar. So choosing your platform then would probably be one of your next steps. If you have decided that you'd like to be an independent teacher, maybe you found your students, maybe you haven't, maybe you're, just planning as you go. But we need to decide what platform we are going to use. What platform are we going to teach? Now, I've just included some logos of obviously the big common ones. We have Zoom, which we're using at the moment. You have Skype. You have things like SuperProf. So this is a website that is just for tutors and professors of different subjects. And you can sign up and develop your profile, offer your services, and then students can log in and find you. And this isn't just for English. This is for tutors in all different kinds of subjects. So there are loads of little sites like this. We can also use things like Facebook, other social media. You can help. This can help you find students, help you find tutoring jobs. Also, remember, we can use platforms as well, maybe like WhatsApp. We can use, for example, if your students are in Asia, maybe they'd like to use WeChat or perhaps Line. This is another well-known or commonly used communication app in Asia as well. So there are many different platforms that we can use. And when we're thinking about our platform, there's a couple of things to think about. Obviously, you want to think about you as a user, comfort. Which one do you feel comfortable using? Which one best suits the laptop that you have, all of these kind of things. We want to think about then accessibility and the ease of use for our students as well. Will our students be able to download these apps? Will they be able to get access to them? Can our students use and navigate these platforms as well? This is definitely something that we need to think about. Another thing that we need to keep an eye on or just keep in mind when we're thinking about our platform is, what will our students be using in class? So for the most of us, we will use a laptop or a PC to teach from. And usually your students will be on the receiving end. But it is also very common, again, especially in Asia, for students to be using their mobile phones. So this is obviously a much, much smaller screen. So, and sometimes we don't have control over whether or not our student is going to use a mobile phone or a laptop. So this is something else that we have to consider. And it's also something just to keep in mind as well when we are planning our content. We don't want to have too much on one slide. We don't want to have too much on one slide anyway. But especially if our students are going to be using a mix of mobile phones and laptops, we want to make sure that the content is still easy to read and easy to take in if they are using a smaller device to have your lessons on. What else do we need to think about then? So once you have decided on your platform, how are you going to teach your environment? You found your students through whatever means you have done so. We need to then assess our learners. We need to look at our students and we need to evaluate their abilities and we need to establish their learning goals. Once we have done this, then we can develop content for them. So when we're evaluating our students' abilities, we can do this in a couple of different ways. And you can use a mix of these different ways too. The more you learn about the student, the more accurate and the more prepared you can be in developing your own content. So when we're looking at evaluating a student's ability, we can give them a small standardized test. This is something that you can develop yourself. It can be verbal. You can use a mix of things. You can use flashcards. Play a game. Use any of the online resources that we've talked about in previous webinars. This will be a fun, relaxed way of getting to evaluate your students' ability. When we're playing a game, we'll be able to listen to their vocabulary, their pronunciation, all of these different things. The same reason why we use games in class. We can use games to assess our learners' abilities as well. We can use questionnaires, we can use surveys, especially if your students are older, or maybe if they're business students looking for business English. Don't be afraid to sit and question them about, we'll talk about learning goals in the next half, but talk about, why do you want to learn English? How long have you been learning it for? What are you struggling with? All of these different things. You can pop in little questions, give them multiple choice things, again, like the small tests, do a combination of this to find out as much as you can about your learner. Get your learner to give us a short self-introduction. This is another really good way of finding out how capable your student is. You can even do a short demonstration, especially, if this is a new student. You want to introduce yourself as a teacher, who you are, your teaching style, all of these kind of things, little bits and pieces about yourself. Get your student to do the same. Get them to introduce themselves or a topic, give them a couple of minutes or 30 seconds, whatever it is, and you will be able to evaluate and assess from what they're saying, from what you are hearing. And then the last thing, or one of the last key points that we need to think about is, if possible, to identify our students' learning style. So we mentioned learning styles in our last webinar when we were talking about somebody who learns a lot from listening, from audio, somebody who's quite kinesthetic, who's moving around, somebody who's quite visual, who learns from videos. So we have different learners. And we want to identify from our students what kind of learner they are, what kind of learning styles do they enjoy. Especially if your students are online, we want to try and make the classes as fun as possible and keep a good level of energy. Another thing we would like to discuss when you're evaluating your students' ability, we also want to find out about previous experience. So this can cover a lot of different things. Previous experience can cover basics like how long have they been learning English for? Are they a beginner learner? Are they an advanced learner? Like we said, are they high school? Are they middle school? Are they business? How have they learned English before? Did they learn it through school? Did they learn it through an extracurricular activity? Are they just picking up words from music and songs? What is their previous experience? What did they enjoy from their previous experience? What did they not enjoy from their previous experiences? What kind of teachers have they had? Did they not like their teachers? Why not? What kind of materials have they used? Perhaps your students have used certain course books, certain textbooks. And if you find this out from your students, then you can have a look back at these course books and these textbooks that they have used. And this will help you to know what level your students at, where they should be, and also help you to add content and add review content into planning your lesson as well. So finding out about all of their previous experiences as a whole is really important and can really help you as a teacher prepare specifically for the student and make sure that you're providing the best level of teaching that you can for them. And once we have all of our information together, and once we've combined all of these things and we've taken in as much as we can from our student, we want to establish our learning goals. And I just have this in 3 very simple points. What? What are the students wanting to improve on? What do they want to develop? Do they want to work on listening? Do they want to work on pronunciation? Do they want to work on grammar? Do they want to review stuff that they are struggling with in school? Why? Why are the students coming to us to learn? Do they want to learn because they have an exam and they're going to fail this exam and they're really nervous? Do they want to, or are they looking for progression in their career? They want to develop some business English to help them develop their career. Are they going traveling? Maybe they're going on holidays next year and they want to be able to travel freely and speak some English and connect with people when they're out and about. So knowing what our students want to learn, but also why our students want to learn, will help us to create interesting content throughout our program development as well, and helps to tie in little real life scenarios that will be beneficial for our students in the long run and help them, give them kind of real life practice situations as well. And then we want to talk about how. So, how are your students going to learn? And also, how long do they have to learn? So this, we can talk about this in a couple of different points. The first one would be how long your lesson's going to be. How long does your student have for a lesson? Will you have lessons twice a week, once a week, 3 times a week? Will your lessons be half an hour, 45 minutes? How long does your student typically spend on their homework? How much free time does your student have to practice when they are at home? This is something else that we need to think about. And this is something that will also affect our planning and our lesson and our course development. So if we have a student who's a little bit more mature, maybe they have a house to run, a family to take care of, as well as a career that they are developing. So this person might not have an hour a day to practice English. Maybe they will only have 15 to 20 minutes. We need to keep an eye on this, keep thinking about this as a teacher. Similarly, if we're teaching young learners, we want to try and give them games or activities or songs that they can practice and will enjoy practicing outside of class. So this how is also a very important thing that we need to be thinking of. Once we have assessed our learners and evaluated our learners, then we can move on to developing and creating our content for our lessons. When we are creating content, I would say that it is best to map out your content at least in sections, or, if you think of any kind of school system or education system, right, it's broken up into segments or into terms, or, half term and a spring term or whatever it is. We have books, we have this. So everything's already split up into manageable sections. And this is what you want to do for creating your own content too. So you want to have a rough idea or map out a rough idea of your content for the next however long it is. If you're going to teach in 10-week blocks, if you're going to teach based on subjects broken into 4, 4, and 4 parts in each. How you break up your content is totally up to you, but I would suggest that when you're creating content that you do it in a map and that you can follow it on one from another. So instead of, writing a lesson plan for week 1, okay, I'll write my lesson plan for week 1. I'll teach this student. And then next week, oh God, I don't know what I'll teach next week. Okay. And then I have to create a second lesson plan. So it will be much easier for me if I think, right, overall, the next 6 weeks, I want to cover this, and this. And that way I can map my content out over the 6 weeks, make sure that I have a nice flow and that everything transitions nicely. When we are creating content then, especially online, we have so many online resources, right? We can take so much from online and borrow so much of it online. And when we are creating content, there's a number of different ways we can do this. So we can use things like Canva, which I'll go through, or James will go through later towards the end of the presentation. And you can use platforms that are already there to help you create content just like you would for social media. And then you can use things like what we're using to do our webinars. You can use PowerPoint, Prezi, Google Documents. You can take all of your content, find all of your bits and pieces from the cloud, from the internet, and put them all together and develop your own PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is that you decide to use for your lesson and for presenting your lesson. So we can create content and we can take existing content already and form it into our own learning content. We can create content ourselves, or we can borrow content that's already there. ESL isn't something that has just sprung up this year, right? There are so many resources out there, so many resources, and that goes for lesson plans as well. You do not have to create everything from scratch. People like the British Council, organizations like the British Council, even social media sites like Pinterest are really good for lesson plans and for content. And especially sites like British Council. Also, you'll have seen some of the resources that we've showed throughout other webinars. When you click into those resources, quite often you'll see on the website themselves that it will be broken up into levels as well. And so by researching your own content and by seeing this, you'll be able to pick up on the common patterns and the common language that is used for each level. And then this will help you yourself begin to understand what you can use for each level of students, what your learning goals should be, what the content should be. And then books. This is a really big thing. Just because we're online, just because we're teaching online, doesn't mean that you can't use books. Like I said before, finding out your student's previous experience is really important, or finding out why your student is having the class with you. So maybe your student is currently doing English in school. They're using a textbook in school, and then they're going to do a review lesson with you. You might want to find out what that textbook is, because maybe you will do 10, 15 minutes of your lesson to help this kid review or this student review with their coursework and textbook from school. And then you can develop your own content separately to that to expand. You can then just use books when you're, whatever books you see when you're out and about, just keep an eye to add to your own content then as well. I have a couple of books here beside me. And again, I just use these for bits and pieces. So this one is a kid's book. It's all of the little bits of English, help your kids with English. And it basically breaks down all of the different parts of the English language, from grammar to pronunciation, verbs, adverbs, irregular, spelling, all of this kind of thing. I don't use this in class, but maybe if my student's having a little bit of difficulty, I can take it out. Maybe if I don't like the content, I can add content from here into my own explanation. Similarly, I have books for a business English, for writing, for doing reports, this kind of thing. I was teaching business English to some native Chinese people here in the UK who were working for a company, and they wanted to develop their English in terms of having meetings, writing reports, all of these kind of things. You can get books and just take snippets, bits and pieces out of them. Sometimes books will have really good exercises in the back. And you can give these exercises as extra homework. Maybe if you're teaching students and somebody finishes a little bit earlier, you can give them an exercise out of the book. Also, sometimes it's good to have some books because students may ask you for resources. And it is nice if you have a nice book that can be bought online to encourage your students to have some English reading material in their own home, which I think is quite good. And then another book I have, and this isn't even like a teaching English book, this is just a general grammar book. And it's based on just loads of little learning points and quizzes and tips and tricks. And the whole book is that. The whole book is like a workbook, almost like a little Sudoku book or something, like a travel book for playing. The whole book is just one big activity book. And so again, this is a really good book because it has different levels, all different parts of English, all different parts of grammar, and you can photocopy or take the exercises out of them, or create your own. Just even use it as ideas, use it as template layouts even as well. So books are just as important as all of our online content as well. So next time you're out and about, don't just rush by. If you see any little books or anything like that, do just have a quick peek through and see if there's anything in there that you feel might be relevant for you or to help you develop your skills. Once then we have looked at creating all of our content, and remember, we spoke before about the different types of learners. So we want to make sure that we have a mix of content as well. So like I said, we want to have some books, we want to have exercises and listening, maybe a couple of videos, a couple of games. So we want to have a big variety and versatility of learning materials. Then we get down to our documentation, our lesson documentation, and the kind of documentation that we're going to need for class, for planning our course. Now, like I said before, you do not have to create these lesson plans from scratch by yourself. These are just 3 templates that I got off the internet on Google. You can use any of these 3. Like, there are templates everywhere. And like I said before, there are lessons that have already been done as well. And you can take these lesson plans and modify them as you go. Lesson plans can be as simple or as complex as you like. So for example, the first one, that's a pinkish red kind of color. This is very simple, right? Very blocked. We have our objectives, what materials we'll use, what resources we'll use, what activities we'll do, etc. And you could maybe use something like this that's quite general as your map, and then use, or as your overall kind of syllabus or course guide. And then you can use a more detailed lesson plan for your individual lessons. This is all up to you. Again, there's no right way, there's no wrong way to do it. As a teacher, some teachers may need more prompts than others when they're in the classroom. Some of you may find if you are teaching with a PowerPoint, like a presentation, the way we do these webinars, that you may not need a full detailed lesson plan beside you, because each slide will be able to trigger or help you remember what needs to be done. And you can include your learning objectives for the day and your aims throughout your slides, throughout your PowerPoint. But the main focus that I want to have here is that lesson plans are so flexible. What you decide your lesson plan, you design your lesson plan whatever way suits you. And then also, like I said, don't be really stressing out and getting really frustrated and spending hours and hours and hours doing up this document, this lesson plan. They can be found on quite a lot of different websites already with the activities and stuff in them. And we'll go through some of those as well. The one thing I would say for your lesson plans, whether you're going to plan them on using technology on a laptop or on a phone or on an iPad, or if you're going to use paper and have it on a book, I would store them in the same place. So for example, I can show you for me, when I was teaching in China, my documents, let's do teaching in China. I taught at Shane. These are all of the classes that I had. And these guys gave me some templates. You can get templates for different lessons. So you can have a template for vocabulary, a template for listening, a template for older students, a template for younger students. That will totally be up to you. So let's do Cielo 1. And here we can see these are all of the PowerPoint presentations that I created for the lesson. And then these are all of the Word documents with the lesson plan that I have also. And what I would do is I would go in, I would have my lesson plan, and seeing the lesson plan here, because it's saved, I can then just go in and make edits to the lesson plan as I go, and then just save it as the next lesson. This will help me to save all of my lesson plans in the one place. It also allows me to ensure that I am keeping my lesson plans fresh, and that I am trying to be creative, and that I'm not using the same activities over and over and over and over. If I can see my lesson plan from last week and I am making a new lesson plan right beside, I can see, okay, this activity I did last week, this game I did last week. And also we want to make sure that, especially in the beginning, that we're adding notes and taking feedback on our lessons and on our lesson plans too. So have space at the end of your lesson plans to do this. And then that way that will help you with your next plan, and so on and so forth. When we are talking about our lesson plans and planning as well, like I said, we want to add variety because we have lots of different learners who have lots of different learning styles. But as a teacher, we have to think about our teaching style and our teaching method as well. So we have 3 teaching methods just down at the bottom, PPP. For those of you who are finished your TEFL course, or at least halfway through, you guys should have heard about this before: present, practice, perfect. And so this is probably one of the most common styles when teaching English. We want to present what we're teaching. We want to practice, do a controlled practice, and then we just want the kids to perfect and try and produce and use this language by themselves. Then we have TTT, test, teach, test. So this is where we'll give our students an activity or a test to see check their understanding and check their ability in the subject matter that we're in. Then tailor our teaching and pick up on all of those little learning points from your first round of testing. And then at the end, test if everybody has understood what exactly was taught. And then task-based learning is the last one. Again, this is a very much, it is what it says on the tin, task-based learning. This is where the students are learning through tasks, learning through activities. And this, I mean, we tend to throw in kind of activities and tasks and games throughout our lesson plans anyway. So don't get too wrapped up in the exact definition of these three kind of teaching methods. It's more just to highlight that as teachers, we have to think about learning styles, but also think about ourselves and how we are going to approach a certain topic or a certain subject, and whether or not if a slight change in our teaching style, actually it might suit the certain topic or subject that we're teaching at the moment. Another thing that we're thinking about then when we are talking about documents is we need to think about your terms, your conditions, your contracts, all of this kind of stuff. So when we are creating our own content, like I said, not only do you want to have a rough map of the length of your lessons or course, how many lessons you're going to do, you want to have your individual lesson plans, you want to develop documentation for your assessments. You want to then develop documentation for whether or not your students, whether or not you're going to test your students. How are you going to review your students? Are you going to give your students a feedback or a report? Will this be on a weekly or on a monthly basis? And vice versa. Will students be giving you a report? Will you be getting feedback? Because teachers getting feedback is just as important as us giving feedback to our students. We need to constantly be assessing ourselves and trying to develop ourselves as teachers. And then we also want to think about having some kind of contract or some kind of agreement with our students as well. We want to talk about, like we said, the duration of our course, of our lessons. How much is your student going to pay? Are they paying in installments? Are they paying in a fixed amount? What currency are they paying in? Who and how are they paying? Bank account, PayPal, Alipay, all of these kind of things we have to think about. We have to think about things then like, what if our student doesn't arrive? What if our student is late? Will they incur penalties? Will I still get paid? All of these things you have to think about yourself as a teacher, and what your terms and what your conditions are going to be. Like I said at the beginning, when you're starting off, when you're an independent teacher, there is a huge amount of work that goes in that is definitely undeniable. But the long-term benefits are definitely great. So we've looked at a couple of different things, right? We've looked at why we'll be self-employed. We've looked at choosing our platform, assessing our students, creating content, all of the documentation that we need. And then we need to think about setting up our classroom or our teaching environment. Now, I know James has mentioned a little bit about this before and has done a webinar before about setting up your classroom and what kind of tools and equipment you need. So I won't go into it in too much detail here. But when we're setting up our classroom, we need to just think of a couple of things. Just like when we're thinking about what platform we're going to use, we also want to think about our classroom settings. So having a headphone, a microphone, having something like this is usually better than having the ones that come down from your ears. I have a pair somewhere here. These ones, just the normal wire ones. Sometimes with these, the microphone can be quite low. It will rub against your clothes. It can get tangled. So having a good headset is definitely a big benefit and something you should think about when setting up your online classroom. Making sure that you as a teacher are in a comfortable environment, a quiet environment. Make sure that you have a good internet system set up and the ability to move around. So as a teacher, you might want to be able to stand up and sit down for some of your lessons. All of these things are things that we have to think about. Also then, like what we've spoken before, variety is really important and really key. So we want to make sure when we're setting up our classroom that we're also setting up things like some props that we have. I keep some teddy bears. I've showed flashcards that I've had before. I have loads of colors and pens and pencils and fruit and whatever it is nearby and handy that will help me to um, embellish my lesson, I suppose, would be a good word for it. Anything you can do that will embellish and enhance you as a teacher and enhance your students' experience, your students' learning experience. And I would also say, I mean, you can see from these pictures, you might can say like, oh, well, should we have the same background depending on the level of our students? That's totally up to you. I teach a range of students and I keep this background um, the same every time. So I don't change it. And I have a range of students, like I said. So I teach level one students. So I am their first teacher, and we are going basic ABC, red, blue, yellow. And then I have a business students as well. And we talk about setting up meetings. We talk about the effect of coronavirus on global tourism, all of these kind of things. So you can show your personality with all of the bits and pieces that you have around. And then this follows nicely into decorating your workspace. So before, when we were saying we want to think about having a comfortable environment, having space to move about in, whether or not you want to stand or sit, all of these things that we have to think about, the type of laptop that you have, the speed of your internet, your headphones, your webcam. And then we have to think about decorating. So like I said, what you put on the back of your screen is totally up to you. I know things like Zoom. Also, they have the ones that you can change by yourself on the camera, right? You don't have to put anything behind you. They will change the screen just based on your camera. That's also an option for you. But you honestly can put anything in the back of your workspace. I would say try to keep it colorful. Try to, add a little bit of yourself, of your own personality in there too. So for me, I have a map of the world, but I also have a map of Ireland and England down here because I am commonly asked where I am from. And it's a very common mistake these days, even still, that Ireland and England are the same country. And so I have a little map here, even though you can't see it very well. I use this to highlight to my students that this is the country that I am from, but this is the country that I live in. And even up here, we can say you live in China here and I live over here. And I'll move my laptop screen in and out as well. So that's something you need to think about: flexibility, mobility. Because even James was mentioning last week about, real life scenarios. So if you have an older student and your lesson is on food, don't be afraid to pick up your laptop and go and have that lesson in the kitchen. So flexibility is a big thing, especially if you're an independent teacher as well. Sometimes if you're working for a company, they may be much more strict about what you have decorating your workspace. They may ask you to have their specific logo. They may ask you to not have specific logos. They may give you specific posters yourself themselves for you to print or for you to use. And so having your own space and being able to decorate it how you wish, I think is actually a really, really nice thing. It allows you much more freedom and it allows you to tailor it. And also it can change and develop as you yourself do as a teacher. Right, we're constantly changing and developing as a teacher, and so our backgrounds will do the same thing, especially if you find that you are accumulating a certain type of student or a certain level of student. Then you may find that you might want to keep all of your backgrounds quite simple, like here we have numbers in ABC. You may want to just have a whiteboard behind you that you can write and that you can draw on, or it means that every day you could leave different messages behind you on the whiteboard. Or like we see here, we can have animals, colors, or the map of the world. Decorating your classroom is really important for just creating a welcoming and friendly environment when your students are logging into class. So these are all of the things that we need to think about and that will help us in creating our own content. Now, as I said before, when it comes to creating your own content, there are some different ways we can do this. We can use PowerPoint or Prezi or Google Docs, Google Slides, and just make up our own PowerPoint presentations. We can input our own images, make our own questions, etc. Or we can use sites and platforms and things like Canva. So this is a platform that's used here. We can see they have templates for all different types of things. So your social media, your personal, your business, your marketing. Here we can see education. So we can go in, we can get templates for lesson plans. Don't stress yourself out with having to create your own. We can get templates for worksheets. We can make certificates, okay? Like we said before, what age are your students? If you have a student who is doing really, really well, maybe you completed your 10-week program and you want to create a certificate for this student to give to them to celebrate reaching their goals. So these are all of these things that we have to think about and all of these documents that we can make. And Canva is a really good platform to help us make these. Again, it's up to you what you do, and also up to and will depend on your technological skills. Mine aren't that good. So I'm just going to give you some time. I know there's quite a few resources here. So I will wait and give everybody some time to take them down. So like I said, ones like Canva will help you to develop your own images and make your own templates or use the templates that are there, and to make all of the other little bits and pieces. Then you have one further down, for example, like Film English. This is a content and learning content that is all based around movies, people learning from movies, people learning from films. Buggles Worlds again, ESL, they have a huge range of games, especially for younger students, and lesson plans as well. Once everybody has an extra couple of minutes, I'm going to show you the Busyteacher.org. This is a website that I quite like. Not only do they have resources, they also have some articles and blogs. And I actually find that's another really good way of picking up some extra skills and picking up some extra resources. Just read and what another teacher has to say, hear about their experiences, or they're this or they're that. It really kind of, it really kind of settles in your head, like not everything has to be perfect, or all of the struggles are, something that I may be struggling with that I think is just ridiculous. And then I can read an article and go, oh, wow, okay, this teacher struggles with that too. So I find reading blogs and reading articles are another really good resource and a really good tool. So does everybody have these resources? Perfect. So let me just pop back out then and let's head over. So this is Busyteacher. And we can, like I said, there's articles in here. We can get learning posters for decorating your room, like we said. And these guys also have a bookstore. I'm going to regret clicking in here now. But yeah, so these guys have a bookstore as well that you can click in and buy ebooks and paperback books as well. I'm a big fan of books and holding things. So for those of you who prefer ebooks or online resources, that's totally up to you. And here we can see resources. So we'll go into topics and it will give you a full list of different topics. Here we can see again, vocabulary, speaking, listening, writing. And so let's click, say, family and friends. And over here, we can see filter by level. So this is what I was saying before about when you're looking at resources, quite a few of these online resources will give you a guide to filter by level. And so as a new teacher, when you're developing your content, by keeping an eye on what content fits into what level, you yourself will begin to learn what's expected what is expected at each level. And then using English as well. This is another really good resource for grammar, for testing. Again, we can have handouts, worksheets that we can use for homework. We have interactive quizzes. We have training for teachers to develop their skills. We have lesson plans that we can go in and we can download our lesson plans that have already been developed, tried, and tested by teachers. Okay, so there are so many things out there for you as a teacher. There's so much support out there already for you as a teacher. So we have learning management skills. Then I'm going to play this for you. Let me know if you can hear it. Sound okay?
It's a bit too soft.
Too quiet?
Yes.
Okay, give me one second.
Yes, we can hear it.
Give me 1 second.
Make sure you click. That's my typical mistake, guys. So
Yeah, I was just about to say that's James's biggest mistake. Do you know what I might do?
Right?
James, I will swap and
let's swap
hand the presentation to you, and then that way you can play. And I know for sure that you're
Okay, guys, how are you?
Hello, James. Fine, and you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm doing fantastic. Great to see so many familiar faces. Melanie, I've been missing you. Steffi, I trust your trip was great. And I see Ethan. Okay, great having you guys. Erica, I haven't seen you in a while. There we go. Good to have you back, Ahmed. Great. All right, let's see what else is here. You know, I like to say hello. All right, we got all of our regular friends. And let's get into it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okie dokie.
just don't forget to share your sound.
You know what? I
You just
almost
forget.
almost forgot. See, I was testing you. I was making sure you were paying attention. I know, right? All right, guys. So a learning management system is basically a platform that allows you to organize your classes, leave assignments, set up, assessment activities that are automatically graded. I mean, these things are great. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Moodle. Moodle is like the most popular. If you're not, don't be intimidated by this. It's only a matter of watching the tutorials. Depending on which platform you're going to choose, today I'm going to show you about 8 or 10 free learning management system platforms. And then, you can explore them, you can browse them. I'm not going to go to each and every one of them. But the idea is that you get a general idea of this fantastic tool, right? Watch the video.
What is an LMS?
LMS stands for Learning Management System. An LMS is a web-based system that helps you automate employee training.
What can I do with an LMS?
With an LMS, you can gather all your learning materials in one place and make them available to all the learners in just one click. You can create a different group of learners according to their function or job position. Now you can assign them a single course or test, or a whole series of materials called a learning path. and easily track each learner's progress to encourage the leaders and help your team develop faster.
Sounds good. Still, the question is, who needs an LMS?
A wide range of different organizations, from high schools to large corporations, can benefit from using learning management system by reducing expenses for things like classroom rental, transport and accommodations, instructor's salary, and learning material printouts.
What else can an LMS help me with?
The right LMS helps you save time, set unified learning standards, and assess and develop employees' knowledge regularly.
What kind of business needs these benefits?
Large, medium, and small. Any kind of business can benefit from an LMS.
What benefits will my team get?
Access to learning materials anywhere, from any device. And an unlimited number of times to refresh knowledge anytime they need to. As well as an opportunity to collaborate with each other during the learning process.
And what does all that amount to?
Loyalty, motivation, and strong skills.
iSpring, the right LMS to streamline corporate training.
Well, I do admit the presentation is a little bit commercial, but sorry, somebody wants to say hello. Come here, baby. All right, say hello to everybody. Here you go. Say hi, hi, hi. See, one of these days he's going to give the conference for me at the rate we're going. Okay, say bye, bye. Yeah, okay, Sammy. Mwah. Beso, kiss, give me a kiss. Give me a kiss. Go with mama. All right. So like I was saying, it may seem a little bit commercial, but it was like the shortest, more concise presentation I could find, because learning management systems work not only for you as a teacher, but also for corporations, training staff. I mean, the options are limitless. And the cool thing about these things is that your students are not limited to the time that they spend with you, but they can access the learning management platform and access the material that you leave there for them. So you can leave them reading material, you can leave them interactive exercises, you can leave them links. So, I mean, it's really cool. Now, when it comes to resources, we have covered a lot of resources for teaching online, like as Kara mentioned earlier. And it may be wise, if you want, to go back to our previous webinars, which you can access on YouTube. I've shown you how several times. I'll show you again at the end of today's presentation, because there you can find more specific resources for reading, for teaching listening, for teaching speaking, for PPR, and so on and so after. Today, we're just doing like a recap, okay? But all of those tools are there for you, at your disposal. And then you can integrate them into a learning management system platform. You can put everything together into one place. Now, there are some paid learning management systems, like the one we just saw, this one by Spring. But I actually looked for free learning management platforms, and I found all of this. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Maybe you might want to take your cell phone and take a picture. Is the easiest way, or you want to copy these things. You're going right ahead.
James,
and
just
I'll
to
give you
make
some
a
time.
comment also, when you said about stuff being free, sometimes you'll find that lots of resources at like a basic user level will be free, but the more you want to do, you may have to pay
Of
for a
course.
small subscription. So it's the same with things like creating content, things like Canva as well. There are loads of different types of platforms that you can use to create and actually make your own specific content too. Again, that will depend. There are some free ones and there are some ones that costs will incur depending on what kind of program you are looking for.
Correct. And one of the things that I always make an emphasis on is, as if you're making money with teaching online, then don't be afraid to invest. I charge pretty much what I need to charge, from my consulting services, because I always make sure I have the right webcam. Probably next webinar, you're going to see me with more advanced, audio equipment. I have a very hefty, internet plan. And this is part of becoming more competitive. And this will allow you to get, more customers and get more clients. And of course, if you invest, you will get a better return. So as Kara said, yes, these platforms, they have the basic stuff that you need is there. But if you start getting a good, customer base, then you may want to expand and invest a little. And believe
And
me, it
you
is
can
well worth
claim
it.
that as expenses. If you're self-employed and you're an independent teacher, then you are doing your own balance sheet as
Tax,
well.
yeah.
So like we said before, when you're doing your own tax, you also have to do your own income and expenses. So do not be afraid to spend on resources that are going to benefit you as a teacher and will help you to, like James said, rise your price, the price of your lessons as well.
Exactly. And evidently, the more professional you look, the more you can charge and the more customers will come to you. All right. All right. So let's take a quick look at a couple of these. Are you finished copying, guys? Yes, no? Thumbs up from Erica, Ahmed? We good? You took a picture, Johan? Excellent. Here we go. Okie dokie. So e-learning gamification or gamification, sorry. It's pretty friendly, learning management system platform. You can sign up for free, develop others, and then basically all you need to do is, you don't need credit card numbers yet or anything like that. I'll use one of my personal email accounts here. And I'll just create a password. Confirm the password. And I created my free account. Okay. Gotta wait a second for it to load. And then it'll ask me, what region I'm in. And what describes you? Well, I could say that I'm a teacher lecturer. Continue. And then, you have a little introduction here. Just keep going. And then, of course, you have your content library here. You can create a course. You can upload PowerPoints. You can build up, your content library. So you can bring up, PDFs, PowerPoint presentations, links, et cetera, and you can actually create your courses and whatnot. Okay. So this is very easy to handle. If you have, let's say, doubts or if you want to, learn better, just look for tutorials on YouTube, depending on the learning management platform that you use. Okay. So that's one. Take a look at another one. This one is called Course Sites. Yes. And all you got to do is do the registration. And then, all of these platforms will allow you to do exactly the same thing. They will allow you to create courses, upload, all sorts of materials, upload assessments, evaluations, quizzes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you don't have to be a technological whiz. All of these things are pretty easy to use. If you can use Facebook, and if you can use, Instagram, and if you can use, Twitter and whatnot, and all of these social media tools, you can use one of these. Believe me, it's not as hard as, some people may make it sound, and it's really worthwhile. Because again, it will make you look, a lot more professional, having your own, learning management system platform. Okay. All righty then. Now, let's say, for example, that you just decided after this webinar, that's a lot of work. I got to create my own learning intentions. I got to, set up this and set up that, and I have to think about my didactical sequence, and I have to look for all the resources, and I have to look for the PowerPoint and the videos. And if you're not into that, well, Kara and I are, evidently. We love doing that stuff. And some of you teachers will be like really into, creating and putting together your own stuff and whatnot. But let's say that you want to go, the easy way. That's what we have presentation tools for. And what are presentation tools? Well, they are the modern version of the books that we used to do, or that we used to use in our private classes. And what did we used to do? We used to get a book, a series, right? Have the student buy the book, and then we just follow the sequence in the book and use the resources and the video activities and the audio activities and this and that. Now, these things have evolved, and I have shown them before to you guys in these webinars. And today I'm going to show you a couple from National Geographic Learning / Cengage. I'm not endorsing National Geographic in any way. It's just these are the ones that I have at hand because they are the ones that I use. But you can also look for Macmillan, yes, Pearson Longman, Anglo Publishing House, or you simply go to Google and you click on English teaching presentation tools, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of them. Where can you purchase these things? Well, normally you can purchase them on Amazon. No, usually when you buy a teacher's manual, it comes with the presentation tool. And then, some of them have more functions than others. So I'm just going to show you what a presentation tool looks like. The first thing that you need to take into consideration is that these things have the sequence already created for you. Okay. Your students can purchase the book. You can actually purchase pins. A pin is basically access to an online workbook where students can go in and they can practice and they can do the activities and whatnot. And you can actually basically monitor these activities. So it's pretty cool. Let me show you how this works, right? I need my desktop here. Just 1 second. Here. Sorry. Bear with me for a second. And I'm going to start showing you a presentation tool which is meant for children, okay? For small little children. It's a series called Our World. And basically what you have over here is you have your scope and sequence already done for you. You have student activities, right? Already available for you. You can actually create your lessons, right? You can create your groups and your different lessons. And then when you open each one of these units, you're going to have a unit opener, vocabulary, song, grammar, vocabulary, grammar, reading, writing, more videos, story time, wrap up, and digital student book. Let me see. I don't think I shared with sound. Okay. Making the same mistake. Let's look at what a unit opener looks like. So you'll have an introduction activity. The child clicks, So this one is going to be about my place in the world.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Sophia. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Today, we're going to learn about many different places. We'll see beautiful pictures of different places in the world. We'll see videos of people in different places.
You can pause it, you can rewind it, so this is the unit opener for the children, right? And then you can go back to the menu and then you look at the different activities. You have vocabulary presentations.
A post office.
Right.
A bakery.
Are you ready to learn some words? These words are all names for places.
Different activities over here, right? You have little
park,
matching
a supermarket.
activities. So the children can develop listening. And then, you have all of the other activities. You have videos, you have pretty much anything you could possibly want. For children, this one is particularly popular.
Are you ready for a story? Let's read. This story is called Country Mouse Visits City Mouse. One day, Country Mouse gets a phone call from his cousin, City Mouse. City Mouse says, "Cousin, please come visit me." Okay.
I see some of you smiling. I use this with my kid, with Sammy. He loves it. He absolutely devours this stuff. And then this is what I call making easy money. Now, what is the biggest problem with teaching small children online? Keeping them engaged, right? You use these tools, I guarantee you they'll be glued to that computer, and all you have to do is sit back and relax. Again, all of these things, they're not expensive. These are things that, you can find on Amazon. And I would love to show you more, but we have to move on And what I want to do is I'm going to show you now a series for young teenagers, and older teenagers, okay? Never mind my children crying in the background. You know how that goes. Okay. Let me get back over here to sharing the screen. Okay, this one is called Time Zones. This has a little different format, evidently, because this is, designed for teenagers. And then you have all of these different activities. You have a preview. You click on the activity, and you can click on play.
1. Good morning, everybody. We have new students in class today. Let's introduce ourselves. Amy, you go first. Okay. Hi, my name's...
Then you can go to the next activity and the next activity. You use the audio controls to listen. You can pause.
1.
You can actually, take notes or look at the notes, look at the vocabulary, look at the transcript. You can check to see the answers. I mean, you have a whole bunch of tools, with these things. And these are really cool because these are, specifically for teenagers. Let's take a look at this conversation here.
What do you like to do after school, Stig?
I like to play ice hockey. How about you, Maya?
Well, I like to play the guitar.
And if you notice, I mean, it's international English. So you're gonna have Americans, you're gonna have people from India speaking, you're gonna have Chinese people, you're gonna have Hispanics. So it's really cool because it's a really, international sort of like environment. Okay. You can click on the speaker to listen, and you have a language zone. You have a lot of CLIL, content language integrated learning. You have pluriculturality. You have your grammar. You have, different dialogues. You have different games. I'm just whizzing through the activities here. Of course, you go with them, sequentially. And then at the end, usually, you're going to have a video. So, look at all of this stuff, right? So, it's pretty fantastic. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't have my own learning management platform. I don't have the time to develop it because, of my job. So whenever I decide to do private classes, I just simply use these tools. Because these tools, they're just everything that I need, all right? And if you look at the topics, these are very cool topics, okay? Then you have your teacher's guide, and you have all sorts of resources. If you want to work with adults, then there are series that are specifically for adults. I'm going to show you one right now. Let me launch the program. Okay, here we go. There are series like World English, Life, etc., etc. And I've shown some of these before, okay, in other webinars. And they usually begin with a unit opener. I love these things because this is where you get an idea of how your students think. And I've done this exercise with some of you, and I simply ask my students, what do you see? Some students will tell me, well, I see a lot of fish. Some students will tell me, I see pretty colors. Other people will tell me, well, I see ghosts. Other students will tell me, well, I see people swimming. And other people will tell me, well, I just see a lot of water. Whatever. It's to get them engaged, in the activity. These things will come, with a vocabulary. It comes with the audio.
The word challenge might make you think of physical.
If you want to zoom in a particular activity, you simply grab it and it'll pop right up. Okay. You have all sorts of activities and games, interactive activities, conversations. This one I particularly love. Students love this. What is improvement, progress? Okay. What is related to the mind? Let's say that I'm going to do the wrong one. I do the right one. You may think this is silly, but adults actually love this. I use this with executives. I use this with all sorts, of different teachers, right? Of different students, I'm sorry. You have very cool readings from National Geographic. These things are very current. And my favorite part is at the end where we can do the videos, right? And you have a pre-watching activity. You have these really cool videos that you can actually use closed captions on if you want to or not.
Visually, it looks like you're on the moon. The cat's very shy and elusive.
And then when you do the actual activity, excuse me, clicked on the wrong thing. You can actually, you have the video right there and you have all your questions, multiple choice. You can check your answers. You can see the answers. You can try again. So pretty much with these presentation tools, everything is, right there at your disposal. You use these things in combination with, a learning management system like Moodle, for example, or some of these things come with their own access to, learning management systems that have already been created for you and that actually work in conjunction, with this. So basically, I mean, that's what presentation tools are. Okay. All right.